Welcome to another episode of The Places You Can Go, brought to you by the International College of Seville. I'm your host, Evan Kindle, and in today's episode, we have a very special conversation lined up. We'll be diving into the lived experiences, motivations, and passions of 3 staff members at the International College of Seville who have dedicated their lives to creating transformative study abroad experiences for their students. Today, you'll hear from the Director of Student Affairs, Lisa Dolan, the Academic Director, Sandra Soto, and the Director of Student Housing, Gina de los Santos. These 3 professionals hail from diverse international backgrounds, but are united by their shared mission of supporting students here in Seville. We'll hear about their own journeys to Spain, their inspirations for helping others take the leap into international education, and how their professional and personal experiences have shaped the programs they design and manage today. So Gina, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today and to share a little bit about your background and what motivated you to pursue this professional career in providing students with these amazing study abroad experiences. So I wanted to kind of start things off to hear a little bit more about your background. Can you share where you're from and what led you to move to Seville in the first place?
Sure. I originally came to Spain in 1985. My dad is from Seville and my mom is from New York. I grew up there. And when I was 15, my family decided to move as a family to Spain. So I didn't really have much of a choice. I just had to do what they said. And I have to admit that at first it was going to be a great adventure. I wasn't upset, but I think that once I got here and I realized the finality of it, that this is where I was going to be, I definitely had some hard time adapting. Also, I think that unlike what I support in a study abroad, I wasn't really integrated into the culture as much as I should have been. I was 15. I was in the American high school system. So my parents put me into an American high school, and I'm not saying they did wrong. I didn't speak any Spanish, but that definitely affected my integration into the culture and into the language. It took me longer to learn the language. It took me longer to make friends because I wasn't going to Spanish school, and most of my American friends at the American school lived in the pueblos, and they didn't live where I lived. So I didn't have any classmates near me. And I often think it would have made a difference if I'd been immersed in the culture, just like we at ICS would to immerse the students in the culture as well. My sister was 7 when she came. I was 15. My older sister was 16. My younger sister was put to Spanish school. Until this day, she's the most authentically Spanish of us all, in the sense that even though she speaks English perfectly with a New York accent, she has all the typical things a Spanish person would have. Her friends from school, her friends in high school, stuff that me and my older sister weren't able to have because we just didn't integrate.
So I can imagine that would be really challenging as a young person, especially when you're at that age where you are experimenting with who you are, trying to understand how you fit in the world, and being kind of uprooted and put into a new environment. I can imagine would be very daunting. And you mentioned a couple challenges. Were there any, particularly huge cultural differences or challenges that you faced when you arrived? Like, did you feel that, like, aside from the fact that you had friends that were in the villages and stuff like that, or that you didn't feel that you could really integrate over time, did you notice more challenges, or was it kind of?
There was, of course, the language was a challenge, because when you don't speak a language, you're not able to reflect your personality. So if you were known among your friends in the States to be funny or to be, whatever, that's all gone in one flash because you're communicating in another language. So that's one thing. I was also unfortunate that there was a very stereotypic view of American girls at that time. Not sure really if it still prevails or not, but at that time, for some reason, if you were American, you were more liberal, you were more easy. And that was a problem because that's the only thing guys were interested in if they wanted to become your friend. And the girls looked at you like Oh, you're a man. It was a very strange situation. So it was that I couldn't fight against that stereotype because I couldn't communicate. So it was very, very hard
Mm.
to make Spanish friends um, at that age. Later on, I was able to once I spoke Spanish, but it took me a long time to learn to speak Spanish because I was living in my home with my parents where we spoke English all the time. I went to school where I spoke English all the time. And there was no immersion for some time.
Mhm. So at that period of time too, you were maybe confronted with more stereotypes. There was maybe less assimilation. There were less
Right.
international people around. So at that period of
There was
time.
definitely less study abroad students. We're talking the 80s.
Mhm.
Um, I think I only met one study abroad student by coincidence, not by because I sought her out.
Mhm.
Um, but no, you didn't see students like you do now.
Mm. Okay. So was living abroad always, obviously it wasn't always a part of your life plan, right?
Right.
You were kind
Mhm.
of forced to experience this. Do you feel that you have evolved and adapted to this place? Does this place now feel like home to you?
Definitely, definitely. Although you never stop feeling like you're a foreigner, but you also begin to feel like you're a foreigner where you came from. So I don't feel like I fit in the United States. And it's not that I don't feel like I fit in Spain, but I have a little bit of an accent still when I talk in Spanish. So people usually think I'm from somewhere, but they don't know where. And they don't treat me like a foreigner because I speak well enough Spanish and move well enough that they don't treat me like a foreigner, but it's still not 100% Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely feel like I changed by the time I went to the university in the United States because I went back to the States to finish at the University, New York at Stony Brook. I basically had a decision to make when I graduated to continue there or to come back and try to make a life for myself here. And that's when I made the decision where I wanted to live, where I wanted to continue. And I basically said, I'm going to try to stay in Spain because it was where there were more things that I wanted than in the United States. And I gave myself like a time frame. I said, I'm going to give myself a time frame. And I was very lucky. I was very lucky. I didn't even need that time frame because almost immediately everything worked out. Mm.
Right. I mean, you were taking a risk in doing that and you
Yes.
were kind of,
And I was
definitely-
giving up things
right.
because I knew that wanting a life in Spain was going to have to give up certain things. I was very, very realistic about that. I knew I wasn't going to have the 3-figure salary, the huge, huge house with the 3 cars and the front lawn and the back lawn and that. But I knew there were other things that I was going to get by being in Spain, some of them tangible and some of them not tangible.
Mm.
And I was willing to make that.
Right. And at the end of the day, many of us, when we choose to make that decision, we have to weigh those pros and cons. And for many of us that choose to live this life here, we know that we're giving up certain accommodations or certain amenities that
Right.
maybe we don't necessarily think that we need
Exactly.
anymore, or that we don't value them in the same way that others.
They value other things. It's all about, what's a priority for you too.
Right. Exactly. So having had these experiences, what in particular do you feel inspired you to work in the field of international education, and how did some of these experiences that you've already described kind of play a role in motivating you to take that path?
Okay, but now I'm going to answer you truthfully. Okay. When I started this job, it was a job. I didn't have a calling. Um, I needed a job. And they offered it to me. And I said, you know what? Great. The mission and the believing in a cause happened as I worked here. Now I know how important study abroad is. I've been here for 3 decades and I've known for many, many years already the importance, but it's something that you don't know when you first go in how important it is. You see it because you see the transformation in the students. You see how they come and how they go, what they learn, um, how their eyes are opened. You also realize things about your country that you didn't even know from the United States, good and bad, because not all places have good or bad. There's always a mixture. Um, but it's enlightening. It's enlightening to see how the students get out of the United States, which, in my opinion, always talks about freedom and liberty and so on. But sometimes I feel like nowhere in the world are they most, I don't want to say closed, but, taught one thing than in the United States. And when they leave there, they begin to see other ways of living, other ways of thinking. And it's really only something that you can get if you leave the States, you live outside the States for a while and you live like another culture.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really,
It doesn't happen on a vacation, is what I'm trying to say. It has to come from leaving, immersing yourself into somewhere else. And like I say in orientation, there's always going to be good things about a place and there's always going to be bad things about a place. I'm not saying everything in Spain is great either, but, you know, experience.
yeah, be willing to
Right.
get out of your comfort zone, to feel uncomfortable for a
Exactly.
little while, to allow yourself to look at things from a different perspective and understand that there are other ways of being and living.
Exactly.
And so then how does all of that shape the way that you contribute to the programmatic design that we offer students here at ICS? And how does that, impact how you address students' needs and support them during their study abroad experience?
Well, since I take care of housing, uh, for me, that's one of the pillars of the program because it's where they don't, I mean, we're learning Spanish, but in their house, they're living Spanish. So, sometimes students say, is there a dorm? There could be, but that's not really what we're about. We're about you coming here and immersing yourself in the culture. And there's no better place you're going to do that than in a home, a Spanish home. So you're going to live by the schedule of the meals and the customs. Example, don't come barefoot, bring slippers. And if you don't have them when you get here, you can buy them really cheap nearby. But everybody here wears slippers. Maybe students are not used to taking such short showers, or maybe they're not, but that's all part of living here. Or some of the homes don't have dryers. Many homes don't have dryers in Spain or in Seville. So this is all part, maybe you have to wear those jeans more than once. And yeah, it's might be uncomfortable, but it's the way people live here and you're immersing yourself in that. I also really try to cement my relationship with the homestays and the house moms. I try to make them feel important. Try to make them feel appreciated because I feel like it's a win-win situation. If they feel like I appreciate them and that I'm thankful for the care they give our students, they will give better care to our students. And it's proven again and again that when students get sick, when they have a problem, they're there, with nagging them to take their antibiotics or with hot soup. And I've seen it again and again on all the housing evaluations, how they're treated like they treat them like their own daughter. And that's exactly what we want, for them to be treated like their kids.
Right. You want it to feel like a home away from home.
Exactly.
Right. So although that they have to adjust to certain changes in the home environment because of the lifestyle and the different ways that people live here, you still want to cultivate that sense of warm, welcoming home environment.
Exactly.
So that they feel that if they ever needed help, the immediate person there is
they would.
their host family.
Oh, they definitely, well, them and ICS, of course, but many times it is immediately the host family. And it's funny because really students don't have that many rules as far as going out at night. They can come home as late as they want. We only ask that you don't make noise and shut the door. Or you can eat out with your friends, but you need to send your house mom a WhatsApp telling her I'm not coming home. Those are some of our students at first have problems with those basic roles. By the time they leave, it's like, it's nothing, but really there's no strict rules in the homes either. So it's a win-win situation.
Hmm. Can you share a moment or a story where you felt like your work in creating and supporting our study abroad students like truly made a difference in the students' lives? Is there a specific, person or moment that you can recall?
You know what it is? I've had so many students write to me, uh, and just express how their semester abroad transformed their life that it's really, really hard to pick out one. I mean, we always talk about Gavin, and I don't want to be. He always sticks out in my mind, Gavin, because uh, he came as the shy student who never left his state, who never traveled outside the United States. He never even left his state with his girlfriend. And a week into the semester, he was already saying that he was homesick, that he wanted to go home. And probably he is the student that I think we all can agree, we most saw it transformed. Um, he went from that to becoming, by the end of the semester, he was a completely different person. And that catapulted him into becoming a world traveler. He came back for another semester to study with us. I'm sorry. He came back to study with us for another semester. Then he stayed on his own. He's kept up with his relationship with his host family. And now I believe he ended up marrying a woman that's not American, so intercultural. And I believe that he works in international education. I can't remember the name of the university, but I think he works in international education. But there's been many, many students who have come as one person and left as a completely different person, like even in their demeanor and everything.
Mhm.
So
Right. If you could give one piece of advice to students considering studying abroad or to those that may be hesitant to take that step, what would it be?
uh, I know that students say this all the time, but they say, just do it. Just do it. Yeah. Initially, you might or might not, because that doesn't happen to all students, but you might or might not have culture shock. You might be like, oh my God, what the hell did I do? Like the first week,
Mhm.
no one leaves regretting the came.
Mhm.
I mean, I have never heard somebody say, oh, I'm so glad I'm going home.
Mhm.
Everyone leaves either happy they're going home, but uh, talking about the amazing last 3 months they've had, or crying that they don't want to go home. Those are the two states of students when they leave. But regretting it, never, never regretting it.
That's important to keep in mind,
Yeah.
definitely for all students that are contemplating it. Is there one thing about living abroad or working with students that continues to inspire you in particular?
What we spoke about, the
Mhm.
transformation,
Mhm.
and considering, without getting into details, considering the political atmosphere that's right now in the United States, I believe it's getting to be more important than ever that students get out, see other ways of living, um, other cultures, because the world is not the United States. The world is a conglomeration of people who are essentially, when you come down to it, all the same, but with a lot of differences that aren't necessarily incompatible. And no one is better than anyone else. We all are in this together. And I think that if they get out, even for just one semester, it might help to change their point of view, and changing youth, the youth's point of view right now is changing the future.
That's very well said. And so with that, Gina, thank you so much. I really appreciate your
No problem.
insights and sharing your background. And
Thank you for listening.
I'm sure it'll be of great insight and help to future students.